I don't think he's going to come to our meeting. He's all like, I'm just going to sit home and eat the dinner that Amanda made the kids with.
Where it would be, but I think something needs to be added in here of what is the process for submitting things to be amended. Suppose something comes up after you've approved them. I think it would be important to include in here wherever you think it would fit best,
The process for
how that looks, or what you want it to look like when people have something that they want to bring in for consideration.
It will need to be an ordinance about what we're going to do.
Not just one talk. I mean, you come to the meeting and sign up and speak, and you speak to us and talk to us.
I'm just saying that it seems like it would be natural
Right.
That it would be in here. That's
to
what I
be
just said.
included in here, the amendment process for amending
And
the ordinances. Does that make sense?
Well, because when I wanted to amend the officer,
We were looking at it and we couldn't figure out
I
where.
didn't know how to do it.
Or what to
go
do.
about.
Right.
Yeah.
Seemed stupid, so I did call Lucille, and she said, well, you do it like you would for a bill in the state legislature.
And most people don't know how that happens either, so I just think that would be a courtesy
Beneficial.
or
This is
something.
Jameson.
As an example for that, which I wrote it down, I think you're right, I don't have any, but I sort of thought it was in there, but maybe it's not, but I wrote it down in the book. You've read it looking for it. Is that our meeting next Thursday, which is our regular business meeting,
Right.
the input that we've gotten here, plus the people on the board's thoughts since then, and, you know, if there's
Any written that comes in after.
right, will be considered. And then at that meeting, I believe we'll try and come to a consensus on what we want to change and how we're going to change that. And then at the June meeting, we'll have those ordinances written up in the format, so they'll fit inside our ordinances, the section, right, the page, right, all that stuff, you know, so they'll match up and we won't just have a jumble.
Right.
And then we'll actually officially vote on them in June.
Were you thinking of page 66?
I don't, yeah.
That says ordinance repeals.
Yeah, is that maybe it? You tell me.
Because I went through that too, and I thought, yeah, that's one I tried to repeal. It talks about it being repealed, but it doesn't
Yeah,
say
no,
Well,
how to
yeah,
do
that's
it.
just the thing that says that the previous ordinances that
Were
were adopted
Yeah,
were
it
repealed.
doesn't say
So,
repealed.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't
say
say
how
how
that's
You're
what
right.
that's about,
You're right.
yeah.
Okay, but I've got it down. Thank you.
And so, all the previous ordinances are null and void, and this is what we're
Oh,
gonna
right.
provide. That's what
Back in
that part is.
2000.
Okay, because that's what I saw was the repeal, and I thought, there's no process for how to repeal.
Well,
So-
no, it's the same. And then also on page 9, the same thing, section 11, and it'll be unlawful for any person to alter or tamper with the books of original ordinances, which people can't get a hold of, so I don't think that's an issue. But I get what you're saying about, and I wrote it down, process for amending ordinances.
Yeah. So why don't we just take a paragraph or something?
Yes. And then, see, I think we have to decide over here on page 9, the thing about, you know, the penalties and violations
warning.
and the responsibility and all that stuff. Duty to abatement. Again, that'll depend on how we,
How we proceed with the
right,
other
so
stuff.
we need
Yeah.
to keep that in mind, I think, about
Getting that changed.
when we get
When we
finished
get
with
to that
that, we
point,
need to
yeah.
go back and not
Yeah.
jumble this up. You know,
While you're on section 9,
Page
Page
9.
9.
page 9, I'm sorry, page 9,
Uh-huh.
section 12. The seal of the village of Jameson shall be circular in form and encircled in the words town of Jameson. Is it a town or is it a village?
And that's what it was when it was a town before, it was town and village is based on population. And so it was a town, that's what our
Originally
seal
set up as
says.
town and the
It
set
was a
up-
town?
It was a town.
It has nothing to do with incorporation, it's only size of the population.
The only, like coffee, population isn't that different, but they're a city because they incorporated as a city way back when they had more population. And the population numbers were different. I mean, these towns are old, you know, and so populations were different, so. That's why it says town. I mean, we could spend money and get a new seal made, but it doesn't, again, I guess because it's in here, we're
Or
operating.
it's a goal to make it a town again.
Yeah.
Of some people.
I have on that same page, 19, section 15, warnings.
On page 19?
Page 10.
Page
Page
9.
9.
Page 9,
Section
section
15, okay.
15, warnings. Just this wording I have. Whenever a violation of any ordinance is deemed to exist, a designated officer of the village, of course that would be the committee or whatever panel, may give or I don't know, maybe it'll be the board, may give a verbal or written warning of such violation and the action necessary to correct any violation or abate the nuisance prior to the issuance of a written warning or abatement order. And then the wording that I have a problem is what follows. But no such warning is required, and the lack of such warning shall not affect the validity or enforcement of the provisions of any of the ordinances. I think we need to take a look at that because
I know that was
Well,
in there
that won't
for,
have anything to do with it anymore because we're not going to have a designated officer. We're going to
Well, but
have.
that committee's got
but
more service
warnings
than
that
that,
if the committee gives them a warning and says you need to fix such and such, you know, the panel, I think there still needs to be some kind of warning, not just saying, well, if we haven't given you a warning, then
Doesn't matter, you
it's
still
still.
have to do it.
And I think we discussed, I think we discussed that maybe while you weren't here. Was that the one we had, if
if it was an emergency,
Yeah.
you got a dog.
And I think it
snarl
was
around,
kind of
grab
done
it,
that way,
we can do
as
it.
far as they may give it in the instance where there's like a dog who's,
It's in the
tearing
But
up,
that's,
you
but
know,
that's in the
something.
dog section, whereas
Yeah.
this applies to all of them.
Okay.
All warnings.
All warnings. Do you see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Okay.
I got it, okay.
We would
Good.
I just remember
Good.
at one
That's good.
time we had that discussion about whether we should leave it where it said may or shall, or, something
Yeah,
to that,
discussion. We're gonna get to
extent.
it, yeah.
but, we've got that noted.
There's
now.
a complaint panel, okay.
Yeah, and and we're gonna have to go back and change all the stuff where it says a designated officer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what it says is maybe,
Well, in the things it
Well,
says
but I
that the
guess there
board
will
can
be-
designate someone to do it.
Yes, a board member to do it, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Or-
or the board can appoint, like, somebody from the panel,
right.
or
yeah.
whatever, that's how it's written in the ordinances.
Yeah, so on page 10, section 21, that's it. So any ordinance violation not requiring immediate action to protect persons or property and where a responsible person can reasonably be identified and deemed subject to abatement will apply. The panel who's appointed will verify the accuracy of the complaints, seeking cooperative resolutions to such complaints.
Mm-hmm.
But you
And
guys
that
just
tells how the
said all
complaints are
important
turned in.
reasons.
Complaint,
These
number
ordinances.
C, the complaint review panels will consider the complaint. If the complainant appears to identify an ordinance violation requiring resolution, panel may assign one or more of its members to verify the accuracy, seek a cooperative resolution, or may refer the complaint to the board. And then at each board meeting, we'll talk about complaints that we've gotten. So.
So, would that, okay,
Yeah.
I was just trying to think in terms of abandoned houses. So if somebody puts in a complaint,
It's bug?
Oh,
Oh. Oh, I didn't even see it. If somebody puts in a complaint.
yeah, if somebody put in a complaint about an abandoned house, then if there's no ordinance concerning that, then it's moot. It's a moot complaint, right?
And we suggested that where that one was supposedly, specifically put in place to take care of abandoned or absentee landlords that don't care,
Uh-huh.
write it such that it applies to them instead of applying to everybody.
Okay.
yeah, and I wrote that down. The thing that comes, so yeah, so look, if we wipe out all the dog stuff, and I'm not saying we're gonna do that. But when somebody complains about a dog, we say, well, we don't have an ordinance about that. You know, that's not our
Yeah.
problem, that's not our issue. Because we can't enforce something that we don't
Right.
have. And I mean, we could try and do it collegially and all that stuff, but that's if we don't have any authority.
But that might be, okay, so we can't take it to the end, but it doesn't necessarily mean it would be something for the panel to do.
To talk to your neighbor bravely,
Well,
or for you.
So if we don't have an ordinance, then the panel would be out of,
I'm not in charge of any of that. I'm just thinking that, where does
I
that
don't know.
stop?
yeah. I
You
don't
know, but the thing, and I've been thinking about this, but so we can make people who own, you're suggesting, have requirements on owners of abandoned or neglected, absentee, whatever, that we can say they have to do things to their property. But we can't tell other people that they have to do things to their property, just those who don't live here.
Just go back to private property then. Leave people's property alone, take care of your own. Keep your own nose clean.
Well, and that's kind of what I was saying, you know, where, I mean, right now we don't have an issue with that, but we have in the past had people who live in the property and still don't maintain it.
Right, and
So
that's my
then,
point.
yeah.
So if we're gonna say, you know, Joyce's, you need to mow your yard, because animals are, and shut the door, you know, and lock it, so animals don't live in there and breed and come out into the community and cause a problem, nuisance. You need to do that. But if I'm living in a house and my animals come, you know, whatever it is, so if, I think we have to be careful about
Yeah.
having a double standard. That's my issue. And I think that's what Mary is saying, is that we'll just don't enforce anything on anybody. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't say anything on anybody, I said anything that violates someone's rights, is what I said.
I'm not sure we
that's-
found anything that fits that description yet for you, but we might have something.
It's beyond us, I think it's already been addressed by,
That's a little different than the question I'm asking. I did use abandoned houses, which kind of, we
Switch
went
the
off that
discussion,
direction.
sorry.
In other words, if we don't have an ordinance that covers it, and somebody complains, and we go, oh, we don't have an ordinance, would the panel still be able to operate?
Depends on how we write it, and what the board wants it to do.
We could decide that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you guys think? Would you want the panel to still have some kind of jurisdiction, even though we don't have an ordinance to cover it?
I don't think they'd have
I
any
don't think
jurisdiction.
they have
Wouldn't have
Yeah, yeah,
jurisdiction.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I used the wrong word. I
Okay,
used the wrong
okay.
word.
The panel could discuss maybe options, but they wouldn't have any power to
There's
do
no leg to
anything.
stand
They'd
on.
have to give
Yeah.
the recommendations back to the board.
And you're
it would
likely
be-
talking to,
Up to
asking
the
them to
board.
talk to somebody who's not gonna appreciate somebody's nose getting stuck in and there's nothing for them to stand on. I'm not sure that's fair for us to ask volunteers to do that.
well, back to what Lori Ann
But I
said,
don't
it's
know.
not what we're gonna do to these people who aren't here to take care of their property. It's what can we do for them, and it's like maybe they wanna pay $25 and you come over and I bring my brush cutter and whip around there or something, which is something I've done before without being asked. When you're going back to what can we do, what can we as the people that live here do to beautify the place, and if someone doesn't care about there, can we help them?
And that's like what Beth was saying, as far as like the suggestions, you know, send the thing and say, okay, you need to mow your yard, and here are some people who do this for hire, or, you know,
Right.
in the area, or whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
wait, you
but I
know,
don't think, I think the feedback we've gotten is we don't wanna tell people they have to mow their yard. Cause that's a private property issue, and so don't tell me to mow my yard. So we can't tell
Could we be
absentee
more,
if we
I mean,
adopt that, we
I'm
can't.
trying to get an idea in my mind, like specifically, what would that mean, like, what are we talking about? People that we talk to that aren't here, like, I mean, specific properties or something, what?
I'm
Like,
not
for
sure I
instance,
understand. I'm
well-
just saying that if we don't have an ordinance saying your grass can only be 6 feet tall, and somebody has grass that's 6 feet tall, but we don't have an ordinance about that, the
There's
town
nothing
doesn't
we
have
can
any
do about
authority to say to you, you ought to mow your yard, here are some people you can hire to mow it. Just because they don't live here, it applies to the, you know, we don't have an ordinance, so we can't treat them any differently than they would treat someone in town who, in the village, who has 6 feet tall grass or whatever it is, right? I mean, we can't have a double standard like that. and to send people out. I mean, that's why I think betterment works, because it's not government, you know? And I think you were kind of critical of tearing down houses, but I don't like tearing them down either, but I don't like seeing them fall down and have raccoons live in them and all that. And I have personally been involved in purchasing some properties and having that done as for the community, not for any benefit that I get from it.
We did have a conversation about that, you and I, about how you got your name on the list to have a house that was abandoned to get torn down by the betterment.
Mhm.
I was specifically talking to you about a home that maybe I had or something that I
Right,
purchased.
and we just need to ask betterment to do it. I mean, that's the deal, is that, I mean, if you want me to present it, that's fine. If you want to come and present it or whatever you want to do,
Well, wait,
that's
that's what I had. That's what my discussion was with you, is how did you get on a list? But
And
you
I
know,
didn't say come to the meeting and talk to betterment?
No.
Okay, what did I say? Because that's the answer, sorry.
Do you want me to say what you said to me?
If I said it, I may disagree if I said it or not.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, what I remember you saying was that maybe I had too much property, that I couldn't take care of it all, and that I should sell it, which my comment was to you, it's like, you know, and you said maybe I'm asking too much for it, and my comment was I'm only asking what I paid for it, and I actually purchased the property to keep it from becoming so bad, but not so that later on I was going to be in violation of something, to keep it better than what it was before I bought it and took care of it. So maybe I'm only mowing the lawns, but the building's still falling down, that type of thing, so.
Okay, there's an area here.
Okay, I don't know.
So in other words, you know, I don't have access to the dozers and the stuff that you, with the,
With betterment does. With
Yes,
And
with
let's
the-
not
Come
do-
to the betterment committee and make a proposal.
So, you know, the Glade property was a mess, and somebody on the board, on the betterment board, contacted them and said, you know, this is a mess. Would you like Betterment to clean it up? And they got written permission for them to do it. And Betterment's been over there working, you know, and Betterment is just people. It's not like something other than people. And so folks who are willing to volunteer their time and their money to spend their energy and their resources, their vehicles and tractors and wagons and all that stuff to clean up something, then they do that. And that's how good things happen, by people volunteering and using their own resources and not thinking government's going to help them, or I deserve this because I breathe. So that's, I don't know why Betterment wouldn't help you. I'm just saying, we meet up next Wednesday. We meet next Wednesday at 7 o'clock.
I'm seeing that there's going to be a hole here, and I don't
Okay.
know how to cover it. If we don't have an ordinance, and there's a complaint, and we can't send volunteers, we can't ask volunteers to do something that wouldn't be fair to them, it seems like there's going to be a hole. I don't know how else to explain it.
Maybe
Okay,
at that point you consider an ordinance that would cover it.
okay,
And pass the
okay.
ordinance,
Yeah,
and
okay.
then,
And then.
that might take some
Okay.
time, but.
Because I'm thinking about the dog, you know, that was the issue I had with the dog, which I had gone to the people and said, your dog is wrecking my yard, could you please keep it contained? Unfortunately, the dog got hit and that took care of it. Okay, but if we don't have a leash law, if we don't, you know, if we don't have if we eliminate the large thing, then that dog has, you know, can run around and annoy or, you know, do damage to my yard. And I can talk to them, and they don't care, so they let the dog roam. That's the hole I'm talking about. Can you see it? Can
Yeah.
you see the
Yeah.
hole I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
So can't you complain to the panel? To the-
Yeah, that's, okay, so I'm going,
And so
okay,
they
I
go and
talked to
they
them.
talk to this person and
Why
say,
should
what
the
can
panel
we
take
do
that on?
about this?
Yeah, but, yeah, see, and she's asking a legitimate question. The panel's a volunteer, why should they take that on? They
When
don't have
they're
anything
not-
to back it up. They could do it out of being nice.
I mean, you can call the
yes.
sheriff, that's what folks said, you know, that's somebody else's problem, it's not the town's responsibility to do that.
Yeah, that's the whole.
And you're not gonna get a lot of sheriff, but everybody's, I mean, I think there are gonna be lots of holes, the holes in the eye of the beholder. I think that something ought to be enforced, but I voted, you know, we decided not to do that, and now it's a problem, and I can talk to my neighbor if they don't wanna do it, well, it's too bad, because we don't have anything about doing that. So that's the flip side of
Yes, it is.
these decisions, I mean,
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd
Yep,
bring that up.
yep, I agree, I'm in agreement, there's a whole lot of sea. So I think this whole thing on 12 and 13, you know, about
That
these
reminds you of this.
payment agreements and violation notice and all that, I think we need to wait and see what we have remaining in the ordinances if that's gonna mean anything to us happening. Myself, that's what I think.
So the answer suggestion is, well, maybe
Alternate.
we need to reevaluate the necessity for an ordinance. If there's a hole.
If you find a hole that needs plugging, then take care of it.
Okay.
Well, we can change ordinances at this
Yeah.
time, but I think that we have to
Okay.
realize that whatever we choose to do or enforce is gonna be controversial to someone, the person who's owned that violation,
Violation.
you know? So,
Okay.
I did not, in our board meeting, in our minutes on page, I'm sorry, in our ordinances on page 19, I think, yeah, section 11, it says we meet at 7 o'clock, and I know we changed that to vote at 6:30, and I wonder if we want to change that officially while we're amending these ordinances,
Yes.
that would be
I
a good
would,
time
yeah,
to do
I
it.
would say
So,
yes.
You're on page 19?
yes, at the bottom.
Just changing where it lists that our regular meeting,
At
board
7
meeting is on the third Thursday of the month at 7 o'clock. We wanna change it to where it's at 6:30.
6:30.
Because we've started meeting at 6:30 instead of at 7.
We did that as a function, and we didn't change the ordinance. You see where we are, section 11.
I
of the
do
ordinance.
see.
Okay.
We've got a lot of notes.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wanna say thank you for holding this meeting too.
Thank you
For allowing input.
Thank you.
So we will make a report to, to take to the meeting next week and we'll discuss everything.
And I'll type these up and
There.
wait until I get, if I get any written
Well,
stuff.
I don't know if we'll get to every, we'll try to, but
You do what you can.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't wanna be
Oh,
here
I
till
know
11
where
o'clock.
There is, I sent it with the packets, or they were delivered with the packets,
Yeah.
also at the corner on the red tablecloth and on that wood one is if you wanna apply for consideration to be on the ordinance complaint review now.
Beth, I've got a question on that. So you list you have to be a registered voter. Is that
Oh,
just
boy,
the board's decision to have that criteria there? Or is there some legal?
Well, we created
Principle.
this itself, I put registered voter because that's what it takes to be on the board.
But it's not the
It doesn't
board.
necessarily have to be what it is. So
Right, it kind of
that's
is,
it.
it's exclusive with me, who, for reasons which I won't go into here, that I am
Okay.
not a registered
Why don't I
voter.
put that on the list for us to talk about next week? and it should
Right,
make it
because I've started
one
filling out that application, but it looks
Okay.
like I've been eliminated.
Registered voter.
No, I'm
Is
not.
that voter for
Here are
ordinance review? Oh, thank you, Dan.
Deanne's suggestions.
9, are we keeping our word 849, okay. Ordinance complaint review. Thanks, Marion.
Thank you.
Do you not want to be called Ann, you just want to be called Mary?
My name is Mary Probert.
Okay, all right, sorry.
My given name by my parents was Mary Ann, but for 20
Okay,
years,
because
Mary
I called you
Probert.
the wrong thing all this time, and if
That's
that offends you, I
correct.
didn't
That's
want
right. You done,
None
Letha
of
done.
corrected me.
It's well, I
So
did.
I'm
I
glad
have
now.
done.
I'm
Yes.
glad now.
You may
Thank you.
address me as Mary. That's my name.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
And if she forgets, remind her again.
That's right. It's not intentional, but I think I'll remember.
I'm sitting here making a motion that we amend to stop this.
It's not the official meeting,
So we can just go.
What she want to do?
She says, do we have to have a motion to end this
No,
meeting?
we
Oh,
do
yeah.
not.
We can just dissolve. We can go ahead.
This is not a meeting.
Okay, it's a meeting.
It is a meeting, but it's not an official board meeting.
It's a discussion.
Thank you all for coming. Thanks.
Let's get glasses, Beth.
Say
I
again?
appreciate
That's
your.
got glasses down.
Oh, thank you, me too, thank you for bringing them.
You're sure welcome.
Set up this table.
I don't know, for some reason,
Jan and Jim
it's
set
easier
up
for me to go through gobbledygook and
Beth, let me pick these up.
see some things where most people
Yeah.
won't sit
Yes,
and go
please,
through
Pat.
it to find out where those problems are.
I completely missed that. Marking and I don't have my blood pressure.
This was that one that.
David had and everything. I thought, oh my gosh, what's everything?
Burst open.
We can leave the tables.
I completely missed the thing with the.
You didn't
more
house.
I was trying to set the thing in writing, but I saw that and I was like, my blood pressure. It was like, huh?
And most people, even though they got that,
Well, you can't win if you don't play, and so I think we gotta do all we can do, and, you know, but part of it was that all these people aren't here. And so
and they
if
probably
they
won't
have
take
gotten
notice of it until
they're
they're faced with the
to
violation.
us. I mean,
And then at that point, they're
you know,
thinking,
that's why we're
why
elected
didn't I
is to
do
make tough
something?
decisions.
Yeah, you've got too many vehicles.
We're not gonna be unanimous.
So you can't even sit on it.
Right.
So,
So, I, probably get the big bucks. Yeah, right.
well, and I think part of the problem is the wording in the ordinances gives the feeling of
that's
the-
the way
the-
I understand it, we don't know. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Because of just fighting it, like my family and you guys, the words we've all been labeled as the town troublemakers. It's like, I just want to get that thing, I don't even want people to talk to me, speak to it too. So it's like, I just want to stay in my house, go out with my stuff.
And I mean, I just feel bad about
they want freedom
That's
to
why I
live.
moved here, because it had
Nobody
a
else
population
does,
like
you
no
know,
one.
there's no,
I'm in violation. I'm in violation of the ADA.
I don't need people to tell me that my place isn't pretty, I already know that, you know, and 2 years, we're slowly getting things fixed as they go
I've
along.
been here 20 years and it's been improvement. I mean, you can't dispute.
oh, where you're moving into, so you're still there, but you're moving down by us.
Why do I can afford to hire and rest and stuff? That's
Well,
what
I see in your little corner.
after I mow the street, mow the inside of my flat.
I can know it.
Yeah,
So there's something that's safe, so
And
I
I
will
will
rush
be
it
some
someplace.
And if we
I know, that's why we use here.
I love it.
But I have been asking, you know, neighbors, it's not like I can control if he crows or not, but
And I've been asking people how to smell neighbors to come. And they were
By yourself.
And
I'm one of those weird people that even if I can't smell horse, I like the smell of it. I don't smell horses and cattle. I just don't think very much, but you know, I can deal with it.
No,
Every once in a while, the whole town smells like a big giant turd.
really,
I don't know where that comes from, but it's the whole town.
yeah.
So like,
cats come Sunday.
Yeah.
so you're finding a home?
Well, have a good night. Remind me your name.
Amanda Hartman.
Kirkman?
Hartman.
Hartman, okay. And where do you live, Amanda?
We're up by the park and we've got like the big black bus parked in our
There's the trailer. They live in that trailer there,
Okay.
which is probably not in compliance, but it's.
Well, nice to meet you. I meet one or two new people. It's like, oh,
Yeah, I lived here. I've been here 20 years, but I